Okay. Thanks a lot. I'd like to thank the organisers for inviting me today, and I'd like to thank Rob for introducing me. I'll just say a few words about myself. So I was, as you can hear, I've got a slight English accent. I was born in England and I moved to Dumfries in Galloway when I was 5 years old. And because I've always had an English accent, I've never felt completely Scottish, despite having lived here all my life. So I've got a kind of mixed identity. But for me, Scottish independence isn't really about identity or nationalism or flags. It's about having the opportunity for the people locally to make their own decisions. It could be making their own mistakes or making their own correct decisions, but at least you take responsibility for the decisions that we're going to take. And I'm quite proud to be part of a nationalist movement that isn't a racist movement, because a lot of places across Europe, nationalism and racism go together hand in hand, but the SNP are not like that. And although I'm not in the SNP, I'm quite happy that the SNP are a progressive party. There's a lot of people from an Asian background who are councillors, who are MSPs in the SNP, so I'm quite happy to be part of that broader independent movement. And also, I'm quite a left-wing person. The Greens are quite progressive. We're in favour of kind of socialist values. And I think people in Scotland are actually more to the left than people in Britain generally. And I think if we had more powers in the Scottish Parliament, we'd see more progressive policies that empower and take the poorest in society up a level and able to live with more dignity. Nobody really knows what's going to happen to the economy. People make economic predictions about is it going to go up, is it going to go down after independence. Nobody can say that for sure. But I think we can say with some confidence that there's going to be policies introduced in an independent Scotland that's going to help the poorest in society. And I think there's a book called The Spirit Level which shows that there's a correlation between inequality and more people having mental health issues, and there's also a correlation between inequality and violent crime. So in independent Scotland we could see, even if the economy goes up or down a little bit, a more equal society would be a better Scotland, in my opinion. And fundamentally, Westminster politics is broken, and it's been captured by a class of self-serving politicians who aren't really interested in reforming it. The Labour Party was in power in 1997, and they had 13 years to reform the House of Lords to make an elected upper chamber, but they chose not to. They had 13 years to introduce a system of voting, but we still got first past the post, which almost no country in Europe has. It's an antiquated system. The current Labour Party is wedded to carry on austerity. Ed Balls has said they're going to carry on cutting for the next 5 years from 2015 to 2020. So what is your real choice in Westminster politics? It doesn't seem like there's any difference between Labour, Conservative or Lib Dems. And austerity isn't really working. You can say the economy is not stabilised after the financial crisis, but nobody knows what would have happened if we hadn't done austerity. The chief economist of the Financial Times, Martin Wolf, has been really critical of austerity, saying it's not really working in Europe, and it's hard to say if it has worked in the UK or not. So I'm voting yes to reject the three largest parties in Westminster and the cuts on the welfare state. But being a local councillor, I'd like to see more powers brought down from the Scottish Parliament to local level. Most countries in Europe have much more powerful local democracies than Scotland does at the moment. We don't want London rule simply to be replaced by Edinburgh rule. We need to have much more decentralisation of power to local people across Scotland. If we work on revitalising local democracy, people will actually get involved and believe that they can actually get involved in local politics and make a difference to their communities. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Alex Salmond being in the Green Party, but something he said at the recent debate with Alistair Darling really struck with me. He said, "We don't need to rise up to be a nation again. We just need to vote to believe in ourselves." And to me, it's really important that Scotland believes that people can make a difference. The polls are so tight that a lot of people don't believe in themselves and don't believe in the country can do better for itself. So is Scotland a nation, or is it just a region in the UK, like the BBC website would suggest? We have our own football team, but we can't get rid of nuclear weapons, which the majority of Scots oppose. So I think a yes vote could revitalise our democracy. It could actually revitalise the Labour Party into being a more radical force in Scottish politics, which I think would be a good thing. If we had a Scottish Parliament that could change the benefit system that currently persecute many, I think more people would want to get involved in politics to actually make a benefit system that's more humane. If we had a Scottish Parliament that was able to introduce a kind of progressive tax reform, we'd have more money to actually help people in the poorest situations live in more dignity. We wouldn't need food banks. An anathema in the 21st century, we're a wealthy country, shouldn't need food banks. So there's only 18 days left to get out there and swing the vote. It's close. The polls are narrowing. I would say we shouldn't actually be in the pub today. We should be out, even though it's a beautiful day, we should be out canvassing and door knocking. Leafleting is all very good, but I urge people to speak to their friends, speak to their families, speak to people on the street, at stalls, and go door knocking, and encourage other people you know to go door knocking. It's a historic time in this country's future, so I'd encourage everybody to get out. So, like the name of this pub, I would encourage people to be Gallus, be brave, get out there, talk to people, and believe in ourselves. We can build a better Scotland.